the location of our second pa that I spoke about, called Mo'inaina. Mo'inaina. Can everyone say Mo?
Mo.
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 Like Lord Moa. Mo.
Mo.
Ina.
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 Kapai. Mo means whole. Mo means capture. Mo means court. Kapai? Turn to the person next to you and talk about what Mo means. Kia ora. And ina is an abbreviation for the Māori word pa ina, which means to sunbathe. Sunbathe. Or basking in the sun. Basking in the sun. So literally the literal translation for Mo ina is caught basking in the sun. And in the summertime, it is a lovely place to do that. So, from Pamela Bridge School, all the way down Dunkirk to Point England, from the water's edge all the way back to Tripoli, that is the scope of the village. One village. Mo'inaina. Kapai. So before going down to Makoiapa and laying siege on the defensive part, they ran over here. They took out this place first. Now this was a par site, and this includes your school, Tamaki Primary. They took out this place here because this is where the majority of our people resided. They resided in this area here. Why? Because our people had plantations of taro. And a lot of my Māori kids go, hey? And a lot of the Pacific Island kids go, hey? And, you know, a lot of my Māori kids didn't realise that Māori ate taro pre having to go to the dairy and buy it. They bought it with, our ancestors bought it with them from the Pacific Islands. However, the archaeologists working with Auckland Council and TRC are trying, and the scientists and Auckland Uni are trying to trace the origin of our the specific type of taro that Ngāti Paoa grew here, because it is the taro that they brought with them is closer related to the taro that is grown in Eastern Polynesia and not Western Polynesia. So do we all know what countries are in Western Polynesia? Call it out.
Samoa.
On your jacket, miss. Tonga. Samoa. Niue. No, Fiji is not Polynesian. No. So Tonga, Samoa, Tokelau, Futuna and Wallace and Futuna, Niue. Those countries are Western Polynesia. Eastern Polynesia is
Fiji.
No, Fiji's in Melanesia, not Polynesia.
Okay.
Vanuatu is Melanesia. And even when I say to my kids, Fiji is not in Polynesia, they go, what? Fijians aren't Polynesians? No, they are Melanesians. So, if Western Polynesia, the Polynesian Triangle, is made up of Samoa, Tonga, Niue, Wallace and Futuna, Tokelau, who's in Eastern Polynesia?
Cook Islands?
Cook Islands.
Yeah.
Tahiti, Society Islands, Austral Islands, Marquesas Islands, Rapa Nui, Easter Island, Hawaii, Eastern Polynesia, or Northern, however you want to put it. But if you draw a line down the thing, Hawaii's in Eastern Polynesia. So, Maori brought with them a similar type of taro that is in Hawaii, that is in Cook Islands, Tahiti. So not that which is in Western Polynesia. And our people grew that here, all down here. And our people grew it here. Why? Because all of the waterways flowed out here. And they needed water to grow taro. Because the way that our ancestors, Māori people, grew taro was slightly different to how you grow taro in Samoa and in Tonga and in Niue. Māori grew taro like how Hawaiians grow taro. Have you seen how Hawaiians grow taro? It's like in rice patties. It's like rice patties, and they divert the flow of the water into these plantations, and they flood the taro, and the taro grows under the water. Whereas in Western Polynesia, that is not the case. You learned something.
Yeah.
Wow. And in Tahiti, has anyone seen how they grow taro in Tahiti? They do the same thing. They divert the waterways, the creeks and the streams down into the plantations, and then it flows out. But they submerge it underwater, and then they take the leaves from the thing up there and they cover the taro. It's an Eastern Polynesian style way of growing taro. Ka pai? Our people grew that here. And all of this area, Moinaina, the reason of this place was to grow food. And they could bring their catch in, and then hang them, because our people dried fish a lot. Because we had no refrigerators, we had no freezers, those big freezers, chest freezer. They had to dry food, so they dried a lot of their kai. And they buried a lot of seafood, and then they would dig it up a couple of months later and eat it. Even my dad done that. My dad and my great-grandmother, and they would, those jam jars? They would cut mussels inside, get some puha, put it inside, some onion, fill it up, leave it up. Pickle. Oh. I can eat a pickle, but these ones, you put it up. My dad would leave it up on the fridge, maybe 3 months, 6 months, and all what's that green stuff? Mold. All the mold grows in it, and then they open it off, and then they. So that's how our people live here. Now, believe it or not, this is the place where state housing began. Why? Because after my people were moved out of here, the Crown bought their mercenaries, and they bought the veterans of the Boer War here, and they camped them here. And has anyone heard the story of the Fencibles? This is where the Fencibles were camped, and they were housed in whareropo, or thatched houses made from the ropo reed plant. And they were like tents all down here. And so that's the very first state housing, state-owned housing by the Crown. So state housing wasn't initiated for brown people, it wasn't started for Māori, it was actually started for their own. The state looking after, the Crown looking after their own. So when we think of state housing, we always think of these connotations of poor housing, all of that. We associate it to, leaky buildings and low decile areas like Potara, like GI here. No, it was used to house those early, those soldiers. And their payment was that if they fought for the Crown, was that they would be upgraded from a whareropo to like the stone brick house in Pamua there. That was their promise, that they would get land and a house like that little cottage. So that's what the Fencibles and the early settlers that were brought here to invade our lands. They never came here to negotiate land or to purchase land. They came here to take the land. They were housed here and all down here. This is a part of our local history as well that we need to understand and learn. Is this stuff. Now, a lot of these places around here had little streams and estuaries, creeks, right? They ran out here. They're no longer here now. All you see is culverts and culverts and culverts and culverts. Okay? But, our river down here, the Omaru, it was described as the most polluted river, creek, estuary, waterway in all of Auckland. Right here. The most polluted. Why? Because you get all of that industrial runoff from GI, from up into town there. All flowed out here. And the Omaru is the most polluted waterway in all of Auckland. And it's right next to a school. Next to two schools. Kia kaha tātou. Ka pai. We're not going to stay here for very long, but that's a part of here. The juicy stuff was down there. Kia ora. We're going to go to Point England Reserve, and there are toilets there too. Saying to the schools, and especially to my employer here, is that, what do you offer, or what do you have available that will attract our Ngāti Pawa families that are going to be moving back into their traditional lands? What do you have on offer to attract our families to enroll at your school? Because I tell you, if our families don't, if they're not seeing stuff about themselves on their whenua, and if they're not going to be offered a good education and other things like that, well then they'll go shop elsewhere. Don't show Sawana. Ka pai.